Welcome back. The discussion has already started in studio. Vincent Kimasom, of course, leading it. Of course, once again, Kenya's parliament is under pressure to realize the two-thirds gender rule, with the lobby group Center for Rights, Education and Awareness seeking to stop the 12th parliament from holding its first session, and that the court directs parliament to pass the necessary legislation to implement the rule during its first sitting. In studio now, I'm with Mike Washira is the Deputy Director of CREW Kenya. CREW, again, like I said, Center for Rights Education and Awareness. We also have Teresa Omondi, Executive Director, FIDA, Vincent Kimasom is a political analyst, and Brian Mutie, Governance Analyst. Thank you so much for making time for us. This morning, I'll start with you, Mike.
Yes.
What is informing this? And what exactly are you seeking?
What we're seeking, first of all, is Parliament to exercise the duty that it was given to pass legislation. Now, since this matter, we've been in court over this matter since 2010, when the Constitution...
It's been a long time.
It's been a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And what we've seen is that there is really not enough political interest for this issue to be passed. We've been in court over appointments, we've been in court over so many things, so many different times. You have a Supreme Court advisory opinion on the matter in 2012, and up until 2015, the 5 years that was given in the 5th schedule, Parliament still had not done what it needed to do. Now, Article 261 of the Constitution says they must enact legislation. Parliament's stance has always been, we've tried, we've attempted. The Constitution does not envision attempting.
But they have tried.
But that's not what the Constitution envisions. It says Parliament shall enact. So they have an obligation to enact the legislation, which they have failed over and over, time and time again to do. And so until we got to a point where early this year, Justice Mativo passed his judgment saying that he was giving them 60 days to put the House in order and pass the legislation, which they still did not. There was an opportunity to petition the Chief Justice to advise the President to dissolve Parliament on that basis. That was not followed up for reasons I'll explain later. But now we're in a situation where we now have the 12th Parliament. The 11th Parliament had all that time to be able to pass this legislation. They've not done it. Now we have the 12th Parliament. We cannot say now the 12th Parliament will also have another 5 years to attempt to pass the legislation. So what we're asking the court to find is that with the way the 12th Parliament will be constituted now, they still have not met the two-thirds gender rule threshold, and the first order of business should be make this house constitutional. And then, no, I know you have a different opinion. And then, because legally that house then would not be able to conduct any business.
No,
yeah?
it has already done so before.
It will not be able to conduct any business. It does not meet the threshold that it's supposed to meet under the Constitution. Yeah? And so anybody can challenge and say, this is not a properly
legally constituted house. Yeah. Okay, Vincent, you're not agreeing to that?
I think I will want to hear the FIDA's dimension.
Fast before
then,
let me seem to be agreeing with, seem to be nodding when Mike was talking. But
I'm actually very much agreeing with Mike, and I also want to let you know that also FIDA Kenya went to court also with a petition to back up what CREW is doing. And one of the things that we've done is that we've also now enjoined the IEBC, because they also have a role at the political parties level when they are receiving the list from the political parties, and also they have the power to not take up a list that does not meet the two-thirds gender rule. So we are backing up the petition by CREW and Crown. We have enjoined now the IBC, and like Mike rightfully said, any other Kenyan can come in to say this parliament is unconstitutional. So of course the court will give us direction as to the consolidation of the matters, but we are on the same page. We are agreeing that we should not have our next parliament unconstitutional. Yes.
okay.
You know, as in, I'm speaking to my colleagues. I was a CEO of an organization in civil society. Now I'm providing technical support as an expert to my colleagues. That as in there is a place of law and legislation in society, but we have to appreciate and look at these things from as in the short term and in the long run. I want to say this, that that the two-thirds gender principle is a societal issue. It is an appreciation. There is a problem, and we have to bring everybody on board and actually ensure that they make it to decision making. But now the challenge of a legalistic approach to this is that it is going to work against this principle in the long run. So my advice is to my colleagues is an issue of strategy in the process. The Constitution says very clearly, an article, that the people are sovereign. And the people exercise their sovereignty, and they give us the leaders that we have. So by actually going out and saying that you are unconstitutional, yet they are products of a people, for me, I think I would submit to my colleagues, and I'm saying this because we are on the same side, only seeing this thing from a different dimension. So the question is, the progressive realization of this issue is important. Look at even the results from the elections. We have the previous Council of Governors. It was a all male-dominated environment. In this council that is coming in, we will have 3 elected women. Now look at those women: Charity Ngilu, Anne Waiguru, and Joyce Laboso. You notice they are not products of affirmative action. They are products of a facilitatory environment.
You don't agree?
Okay.
Why? You think
I gave you the opportunity to. Okay. Okay.
No, I'm not interfering. Just
my line of thought has. Okay, fine. Yes.
No, you are saying they're not a product of affirmative action.
As in if you look at the way they were voted in, look, even Laboso, she was able to bring down a giant, a whole principle. So you can see clearly that when people see the benefits of having qualified perspectives, particularly on both genders, the people are the best to facilitate this. So I would say, I would really encourage my colleagues that we are on the same side on pushing the issue, but on strategy, it might work in the long run against this principle.
Okay, you're not agreeing. Ban just shut. You're not agreeing with what he's saying in terms of.
Yes, I'm not agreeing. First, I think that's the assumption that most people make. If you ask these women the journey, and I think he knows that even before elections, we had a documentary of some of these women. If they give you their journey, they had to be, like held hands to get to their position. It was never easy. Laboso will actually tell you that the fight she got of being a married woman running for elections in a constituency where she's not married was quite a difficult issue. So there are various affirmative action steps that take to finally see such
What
a woman.
What affirmative action was done on Laboso?
First and foremost, to go even to the ground to tell them she is not married here, yes, this is not her constituency, but give her a chance. That you'll not hear with a man. There's no man you've seen we go around saying, oh, he's not married, but no, it usually works for them automatically. But for them, there is a lot of lobbying and advocacy that goes around, even getting female governors on board. It was not easy. It's because of the journey we've had, the pressure women put, even at the Council of Governors, we're asking them, even at the political parties, we're saying, front women to run for governor positions. It wasn't like they just got it easy. That's what you people
Okay, let's buy first.
Thank you, Hussein, and I'm pretty alive to the emotions that are being actually First of all, I want to agenda. Let me say that I'm trying to agenda my statements because I always pride myself as a champion of good governance, and agenda is one of the key tenets of that principle. And I want to say that while we are so much sensational in terms of now championing for the matters of one that gender rule, I think to me at core it one, of course, I'm not trying to try to muzzle it. It's very clear that, of course, we have to ensure that we have that balance. But why this time around? Why didn't these movements that I'm saying now coming out to champion for this? Where were they when IBC was actually trying to put its house in order? To me, I think this is something that we have discussed before, and now we are discussing it again, and we seem not to be getting some sort of solution, even through the court processes, because operationalization of the that gender rule seems to be a bottleneck, even for the Sarasarem, in terms of balancing our accounts. Because when you look at our composition of both counties and National Assembly, all the way to the Senate, they seem to be bloated houses. And while we are trying to ensure that we are trying to make them a bit lean, so that they are a little bit accommodative in terms of the exchequer. We are now trying to add more numbers to that. While we have already made the environment, and I'm not saying this because I don't want women to skin me alive, because I've always been a champion of women's rights. What I want to see is a situation where, while we are advocating for an equal platform for both men and women in elective posts, we do not need to give women another advantage when they already have an advantage compared to men. Look at the situation as it is right now. We have 47 women reps who are given it by the law, and now we are fighting again to add that number or to give them another competitive edge over men. I think, to me, it's like we are soothing our women so much that we do not want them to fight. Wait a minute. It's like we don't want, we are trying to weaken them or to show them that they are weaker than they are. Because if Laboso Ngilo and Minji are able to, defy the men and come out tops, then why not other women?
Okay, Mike. You know who's saying this has, first of all, the framing of this conversation is wrong. Because this is not a competition between men and women. The Constitution frames this issue this way, that it understands there is inequality in the society, and there are reasons why this inequality is there. What the Constitution is trying to do is to ensure then that it brings everybody to a level playing field, and for that to happen there must be equity, and for the equity to be there is to put in place mechanisms that recognize that women are at a certain disadvantage because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. How do we remove those barriers that are denying women the opportunity to equally participate and to be included in decision making? That's what affirmative action is trying to do. Now, affirmative action is not going to be there forever. Exactly. It is a measure that is there for a period of time to address an imbalance in society. Now, once that imbalance, let me finish. Once that imbalance is addressed, we recognize that at that point, then women will be at a position where they will be able to effectively participate and compete with men. Once you have addressed those imbalances, that is exactly what affirmative action is trying to do.
I wish I can chip in. I think we are forgetting, first of all, that we are operating in a cultural environment which is African, for that matter, which has its own misgivings when it comes to the position of the woman in the society. We can't run away from that. We should be also be alive to the fact that we are also operating within a religious context sometimes, which also has some sort of connections to what we are discussing here. Hussein, I do not want to see a situation where, the woman of today is so disempowered that she can't raise her voice to champion for what is duly hers. But I also do not want to see a situation where, we are, isolating ourselves from the African mindset that some cultural aspects hinder women from achieving some certain goals in terms of representation. It's not our fault. If you go to campaign as a woman, you are disadvantaged because of some sort of prejudices, some cultural affiliations that you cannot take easily from the minds of the electorate. And therefore, you cannot, bring that context to the political space and start blaming it barely on the laws. We have laws which are very progressive, Hussein. If you look at them, they give this kind of avenue for women of today to actively participate in election polls. But we are not giving them because of those indifferences.
Teresa wants to chip in on this very briefly.
First, I think I also want to pick up from where Mike left. We are starting from a very confusing stage. This constitution, was this voted by Kenyans or not? Was that provision there when we went to vote for it? So let's not make a reference of a document like it's a document that was not voted by Kenyans. It's not like a document that Kenyans. It's foreign. This is a document that had Article 81B even as we went to the ballot to vote for it. So the same Kenyans we are talking about who are tired or are complaining of a bloated parliament or whatever excuses we have are the same ones who voted for this constitution, and they are waiting for it. And if we can implement any other part of that constitution, then Article 81 and any other that calls for affirmative action is an equal provision of that constitution. So let's now not confuse Kenyans that, oh, this is not what you wanted or not. We voted for it, and it's now our law. We need to implement it.
So we're talking about right now 349 elected members of parliament. If we are to include the elected women reps, 47 from all the counties.
Yes.
I mean, 2/3, by the way, or a third could actually, it's 8 agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
So at some point it might
that
be
is
very
my point is, okay, it's 8 agenda, but right now it's applying to women and women very few.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about 116 elected women leaders in Kenya, in the National Assembly.
If we include the 47.
If we include the 47.
Yes.
So right now we're talking about, we have, I think, 21 elected. 22 elected, I think, and 1 elected senator.
Yes.
In the Senate, that is Susan Keika from Nakuru.
Professor Kamar.
Elected.
Yeah, just 3.
In Uasin Gishu. So, I mean, this would be, I don't want to say it will be another doomed attempt, but we've seen attempts, and they have failed. And the problem, I don't know where I think the problem has been political will. If it's political will, last time such an attempt was done in Parliament, we saw President Kenyatta talking about it. Raila Odinga talked about it. I mean, everyone talked about it, but still, it did not happen. So the question is, how do you realize this? You're taking it back to the same Parliament.
Hussein, one thing in this country that we are very good at is conveniently ignoring the rule of law when it does not suit us. At some point you'll be saying, yes, let's follow the constitution, let's go to the court. The courts have ruled on this issue time and time again. This is an issue where we have failed to just obey the rule of law. The constitution is very clear about it. The courts have interpreted the provisions of the constitution and said that this must be done. There is just no political will to do it.
In policy making, there are 4 things that people need. There is power and politics, then there is policy and process. The challenge is that this is an issue that is in the realm of politics, and we had a conversation with the legislature, and he said the reason why we will not pass this law is that we will not allow a law that will give people an equal to access Parliament through the back door. So you see, already politically that is wrong, because they are seeing that some people are being given an undue advantage into the process. And that's why I was saying, Mike, that we are seeing this thing from the same dimension, that the constitution should be implemented. I think the difference we are having is in terms of the approach and strategy. I am concerned, for example, with the framing of this issue as a women issue. In my view, this is a societal issue. They are our sisters, they are our daughters, they are our mothers. So for me, my only concern about the 2/3 gender principle is the strategy that has been employed by the champions, that it has therefore given us and taken us to
you're talking about, talking about strategy. Where does strategy come about? You see, now you want it to happen in the National Assembly.
Right.
And do you think that is something the champions, but the champions actually Kenyans, because it's in the Constitution. But either way, because you're championing this, are you going to provide strategy? Or are you going just to let it happen in National Assembly and you tell them you have to pass this? Because they've lacked strategy. You see, they have failed, I think, 2 or 3 times now.
Even more. He's right. It's a societal issue. That one is true.
Thank you.
And say it again. And I'll come to that. Yeah. And of course, because understanding and what she alluded to, that we live in a very patriarchal society, we've got religion, we've got culture, we've got all these issues that are societal issues that we have to deal with if we want to address this situation. And that is why affirmative action is not something that is there forever. It's there for a certain period of time, realizing that that is not the only way to deal with this issue, that there must be a wholesome way to address it, which means dealing with it from a societal perspective, dealing with it from a legal perspective, where you address the imbalances. That is
right. Hussein, I just want to bring into speed my colleagues on matters of the law and the constitution that they applied into court, and I want to take them to Article 27, 3, subclause B, which talks about women and men have the right to equal treatment, including the right to equal opportunities in the political, economical, cultural, and social spheres. Going by that clause, Hussein, it is very clear that as a country we have done a lot in terms of bridging that gap, the disparity between men and women. And I want to say that while we voted overwhelmingly for this constitution, 67% of Kenyans passed this law, and they adopted it as their document. Of course, it had its own deficiencies, and those gaps that perhaps are so glaring. I always point the one, that gender rule, as one of the glaring, deficiencies within this kind of document. And the reason why I'm saying so, this is something that has been tried. It's a strategy that has been tried before. both in the lower house and the upper house, how to operationalize the that gender rule, and it has not worked. Even judges pointed some, operational issues or bottlenecks that they are not able to guide properly. And that's why I'm saying, while we do overwhelmingly support this document, we have to also accept that it has its own misgivings. That's why I said, after 10 years of this implementation of this document, there's need for us to sober up, sit down, dialogue, and see how we can correct some of these anomalies, so that we don't seem to be not getting faithful to this document. And that has always been one of my provisions when we come to this bench, Hussein. But I also want to say that women of this of today, of course, while the Constitution gives them the mandate to do that, they are not supposed to sit down and start singing about the one-third gender rule when they can see that how to operationalize it has been a back and forth issue and has not been able to get some answers up to today.
Hussein, you cannot you cannot read.
We allow the lady in the show.
I think you have. I'm still powerful enough. I'm still powerful enough to deal with the women. And this is what I'm saying. That I like the way you are appreciating that there are issues that make this equality not work. You actually have educated us very well.
Yes.
That in as much as the law can talk about equality, there are certain issues that can make it not work. And you've alluded to culture and religion. If we do not tell people culturally that it is possible for a woman to lead, today Leisuda would not be where she is.
Okay.
She was given first the nomination, and then the people saw, actually, a woman can actually lead us, and see where she is. We are very proud of her. In as much as she fought, it was after she was given an opportunity to show that you can. If we do not show that women can through this gender rule, for now,
then
how then do we get the pin?
Hold on.
Hussein asked a question. How then do we how then do we
make sure this works?
Yeah. We have tried different bills. The latest one was Duale 2, which all the civil society people call it Duale 2. But he had a methodology where he was saying, just like we did it at the county level, let's lift 177, put it in 81B, add the women. Today, I can assure you, and I can say this very confidently, if we had done it then, when he brought the bill and they passed it, we would have had even more women during these elections. Because those who came for affirmative action seats moved. Most of them moved up to now elected seats, and they made it smoothly. Why? Because the society had been given a taste of these women being leaders. But if we wait on culture, affirmative action if we wait on culture, religion, and my colleagues, the way they are speaking, we'll never have women.
No.
So we have to direction. That's what I am saying.
Even in this program, I have just said that we have to even hear from your part. And you are here in this program not because of affirmative action. You're here because you're empowered.
Yes.
So for me, what I'm pointing out, colleagues, because I said on this issue we are on the same side. Our bone of contention is the approach and the strategy. What my school of thought, and I've done a research on this area and even written a paper, is that the minimalist approach, whereby I look at just Parliament and I say you are 144. I do a percentage. The challenge with that is that it makes it instead of giving us a floor, it gives us a ceiling. Because what is going to happen? You look at even the women representatives when they go to the floor of the house. Do you know the first thing they said? We don't want to be called women reps. We want to be called county representatives. So for me, my concern, and I think I'm happy for having this conversation, is how do we have a strategy that ensures society?
That's what I want to be your winding comments. Very brief.
Okay.
How do you the question is, what is the strategy going to, for example, this is just an example, Jubilee will have the majority now as you go to the National Assembly. Are you going to work with them? Are you going to lobby as groups? What are you going to do to make sure this works?
You know, as a matter of fact, Hussein, if this is an issue that would have been very easily dealt with at the political party level, we would not need an affirmative action law if women had the same opportunity to be nominated to run for positions. What you get to see is that political parties in their manifestos, which are all written by the same consultant, say, we appreciate this not more than 2/3 rule. It's here in our manifesto. We are going to nominate women. But what do? They nominate women in areas where they are weak.
So somebody...
So then they say, no, but look, we've nominated women. We have them, but they're nominating them in areas where they're weak. So if we went to the political parties, we would not need an affirmative action law. We just have more women nominated and get the right women to run for the right positions, because the women are there. Now that would work. But now, because that's not working, we realize that these are some of the bottlenecks women are facing in terms of equal participation and inclusivity. We say, let's use the law to address this imbalance up to the level where political parties are able to pick it up to the place where society is able to say, good, now let's vote more women in. Once that is happening, we don't need affirmative action again.
Now, you see, I'm happy because of that approach. Like what I wanted to hear in terms of, and my colleague, I commend the team. They've gone to court and everything. That is good because they've helped expand jurisprudence. But I think the first thing we wanted to, instead of when we opened up when we started this conversation and saying that the first order of business for Parliament is to make itself constitutional. Why I would be concerned with such an approach is that you put an institution on the defense rather than getting it to be a participant in this journey. I would want, my recommendation to my colleagues is that let's even have a report this week on the performance of political parties in promoting two-thirds gender principle, because at chapter 7 of the Constitution talks about representation, making political parties public institutions. We're saying we want to know which political parties have not done their part, so that we push responsibility to where it belongs. That way, that's how you cultivate political will, because the problem is we are agreed on policy, we are agreed on the process, but getting politicians on board is actually by pushing responsibility to where it belongs, to political parties. The other thing, we also want to know their stories, like as she's pointed out. What is the successes, what are the different inputs that 47 women reps brought in the last parliament that has helped us see how we have deepened policies and made society better. So I would say strategy. Hussein. We are all on the same issue.
Hussein, I'm on record as a he for she champion. And, and I'm a member of that movement. Of course, I want to say that while I do advocate for equal representation of men and women in both elective and any sort of leadership position, it will be, practical if we give solutions to the problem at hand. And I just want to, interrogate, this space where perhaps we have not seen enough capacity building on our women of today in terms of trying to narrow this gap. We have not seen women movements coming out strongly to champion for this. We used to see this in form of civil societies before, but this seems to have, gone down in terms of steam. We are not seeing these vibrant movements, women caucuses coming together to champion for this narrowing of this gap. And that's a deficiency that perhaps I would want to challenge my two colleagues there to pick it up and see how they can, run away with it. Because it is, move in the right direction, and it is also important for us to be alive to the fact that the Constitution cannot, meet the demands of our needs 100%. It has to have some gaps.
Okay, Teresa.
Okay, I want to also just tell my colleagues, probably they missed it, and this is also the opportunity to remind Kenyans again. You remember there's a time there was a list that came out where Jubilee showed how many women they've nominated and ODM have, NASA have nominated. That was one of the strategies in our work. Okay. And we know who had the more women or not. That's for another day. And we will wait for, like the in and see finally who brings in more women. So that is a strategy we have already tried, you've seen it. Success stories, I've just also told you now, there are so many reports, including in media. Even before election, documentaries went out of showing women what they did. Millie Odhiambo was there, Leisuda was there saying, when you nominated me, this is what I did, please elect me, I'll do more. All that has been done. Now what we are saying is that in as much as we've done a lot of advocacy work strategy, reports talk about them. I'll give you so many from FIDA, from CRU, until at some point you're asking ourselves, are these reports really working or not? Are these success stories working or not? So now where we are at is that the next strategy that really makes Kenyans listen is when we continue just having the courts, reminding them and again reminding them, putting them in the same place. That's why we are back again to the courts. But we've just not gone to the courts empty-handed. What we have done is that we've given them a methodology. Top up is one. We tried telling them a quota system. We gave them almost, actually 17.
How legal is that? How legal is that?
All of them were legal. all of them were within the Constitution. All of them were there. So we said, pick up one that works for you. And it just goes back to what we have said before, that there is no goodwill.
Okay.
Political will is not there.
Right.
So that's why we want them to be told by the court to do what is right.
Let's see what happens in Parliament this time, but we hope something will happen in Parliament this time and have this rule realized. But thank you so much, Teresa Omondi, Executive Director, FIDA, Mike Washira, from the Center for Rights, Education and Awareness, is the Deputy Director, and governance experts Vincent Kimosop and Brian Mutier. We're taking a short break now on Ballot 2017. We're back with News Trend Affairs.